This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Apple Card takes privacy seriously. It's your card, your info, your business. So if your credit card isn't Apple Card, maybe it should be. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country. Anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. Goldbelly ships Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garden's famous cakes. So, if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's goldbelly.com, promo code GIFT.
I'm Courtney Martin, and this is How To, the show where listeners bring us a goal they want to accomplish or a conundrum they're struggling with, and we find the perfect helper to get them unstuck. Today's episode is one I am very excited about, not only because we're talking about one of my profoundly happy places, but because it's something that seems frivolous on the surface, but actually underpins society itself, and that is bringing people together.
Recently, I've been feeling called to just gather women. After having 2 daughters and going through the pandemic, I've wanted to reconnect with more women in particular, but I'm having trouble getting it off the ground.
That's our listener, Christina. She works in communications for a small healthcare system and also does grant writing and content writing for mission-driven organizations. Or, to boil it down, she's really good at connecting with people. So it should be simple, right? Call up a group of friends, invite them over for a dinner party, have a good time. A little laughter, a deep conversation or two, rinse and repeat.
I'm at this inflection point in my life where I'm nearing 40, and we had that group of people that all connected when we were early moms, and that was sort of the tie, I guess, that bonded us together. And now, as we go our separate ways and our kids start developing other interests, I'm trying to find that other through line that can bring us together and connect us on a deeper level. And I genuinely just want these experiences to be meaningful and profound. And sometimes I think, who am I to do that? And what if it's not meaningful? Will they feel like it's a waste of time when everybody's so busy and overwhelmed already? I want it to be something that's valuable.
The thing is, gathering is a skill. And skills require practice and repetition. And a lot of us have fallen out of the habit. Maybe, like Christina, you've been raising a family or you're not as social as you were before the pandemic. Maybe you run into people, but you balk at making firm plans outside of your daily routine. And hosting events in your home? Who has the energy for that?
I have a couple of ideas of things that I want to do or people that I know I want to be there, but I just can't bring myself to execute on it. Sometimes I just tell myself, just do it. And if it sucks, then it sucks. But I can't make myself take that step. It's like something's holding me back, and I keep telling myself a bunch of stories about why it's not possible or why it won't be good. And I'm not sure what my block is.
So I'm hearing that one of the sort of obstacles you're facing is your own very high expectation of creating something profound. Can you give us texture on some of the other obstacles? What else is holding you back?
Another one is space, and the way that our house is structured doesn't necessarily lend itself to a bunch of open seating space. I do have 2 kids, and I don't have a solid support system where I can have them go someplace for a sleepover or something like that. I was talking with a close friend of mine, and I have 2 daughters, they're 7 and 5, and she was like, what a gift you could give them to have women come to your house and for them to see this community and support of each other and to just learn from other women in your circle. Like, that would be so great for them. It's not a barrier. It's a positive, really, that you can show them this type of community and they can grow up in that environment. That helped me move past that barrier a little bit to know that it could be seen as a positive instead of a challenge.
It's so sweet you said this because I actually am that daughter. My mom, growing up, did a bunch of gathering at our house, and I have really visceral memories of being at the top of the stairs and just hearing these like waves of laughter, quieter times when probably something more like somber or deep was being shared. And it had a profound effect on me. And I have now become a gatherer of women. So I actually am the living proof of that piece of advice from your friend, I have to say.
That's great.
Catherine, I'm sure you're having lots of thoughts already.
I am.
That's Catherine Goldstein. She's a journalist who writes about mothers, caregiving, and gender equity. You may have come across her Substack and podcast called The Double Shift. Lately, she's been focused on community building and is writing a book called How to Find Your People, which will be out in 2027. But in the meantime, Catherine's trying the advice she's learned with a group of people over on her Substack. It's turned into this fascinating, fun project aptly named the How to Find Your People Club.
This summer, I wrote about something called deep casual hosting, which is honestly one of the most resonant and viral things that I have written in a long time, which is the idea of really lowering the bar and having sort of short notice, not fancy dinners, no tablescapes, no matching linens, no, perfectly curated 6 weeks in advance events, and just trying to focus more on going deep on connection and going more casual on sort of a lot of the accoutrements of how we get together. And people have really resonated with that.
We'll post a link to Catherine's piece in our show notes, but I just want to read a section to you that I really love. She writes, allowing people to see how you live, what books you have on the shelves, what decoration you have on the walls, and the closet overflowing with sports equipment in the hallway is an act of vulnerability. It's a meaningful bid for connection. Once I understood my rhythms and limits of hosting, I found that having people over for a meal is an easier way to connect than many alternatives. It's a built-in playdate for my kids, and putting on a movie after the kids eat allows for actual, meaningful conversations between adults. Why do you think the response was so huge to that piece?
I think people are really missing this. I think we've gotten out of the habit of hosting. We are not only keeping up with the Joneses in the proverbial sense that we always have, but we're also now keeping up with all of the Joneses on social media in terms of what hosting is supposed to look like. And then I also think the way we run our families and our schedules are so packed that people often feel like it's really hard to get together. And it's very hard to just sort of say, I'm going to have a casual dinner and I have to schedule it 8 weeks in advance. Like that doesn't feel casual. So one of my tips around that is actually doing shorter lead times, like on Thursday being like, hey, are you free Saturday? Which immediately sets a tone of more casualness, and also just really lowering the bar around entertainment for kids and, how about Costco chicken and pesto pasta? Like really not sort of feeling like everyone has to be some kind of celebrity influencer in terms of what their hosting is like, and just being honest about how we live and just making more of what we're already making in the service of getting people together. And this is just really resonating.
So today on the show, we're lowering the bar on hosting. We're making it easier to have people over, easier for people to attend, easier to have a good time. And perhaps best of all, easier to repeat. We'll be back with Christina and Catherine after the break.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is behind 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names to brands just getting started. And it gives you hundreds of beautiful, ready-to-go templates to express your brand's style. You can tackle important tasks like inventory, payment, analytics, all in one place. And you can spread your brand's word with built-in marketing and email tools. And of course, that iconic purple Shop Pay button is used by millions of businesses around the world. If you want to see fewer carts being abandoned, then it's time for you to head over to Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/howto. Go to shopify.com/howto. Shopify.com/howto.
She's made up her mind to live pretty smart. Learn to budget responsibly right from the start. spends a little less and puts more into savings, keeps her blood pressure low and credit score raises. She's cutting debt right out of her life. She tracks her cash flow on a spreadsheet at night.
Boring money moves make kind of lame songs, but they sound pretty sweet to your wallet. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Did you know Apple Card is designed to help you pay off your balance faster with smart payment suggestions? And because fees don't help you, Apple Card doesn't have any. So if your credit card isn't Apple Card, maybe it should be. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA Salt Lake City branch. Variable APRs range from 18.24% to 28.49% based on creditworthiness. Rates as of July 1st, 2025. Terms and more at applecard.com.
I'm Courtney Martin. More now in our look at how to host with ease. If you've been following the public conversation around gathering, you've probably seen Priya Parker's name. We've even been lucky enough to have her on the show a few years back. So much of her influential work has been around hosting with intentionality and thinking through every opportunity. Here's what Priya told us.
There's actually incredible creation in it. You can be creative about the trivia questions. You can be creative about what you ask. You can be creative about the structure. And then I would sort of think about, who would you invite? Where is it hosted? Is it in my living room? Is it in a public park? Is it in a library? After you know what your purpose is, that's when I think the fun part comes, which is, how does the guest list serve the purpose? How does how we open serve the purpose? How do we create enough structure that helps the group take off without feeling oppressive? And where in all of this is there joy and humor?
So, what Priya's describing there are all the things that go into making an incredible evening. And I really resonate with wanting to create a sacred space for people to hear and be heard on a deeper level. But, whew, that sets the bar pretty dang high, doesn't it? What I like about our guest, Catherine Goldstein's approach with her project, the How to Find Your People Club, is that it asks us to cut back on the planning and reduce our self-imposed expectations in order to actually have the event. Essentially, creating a space, as imperfect as it may be, is better than no space.
Basically, the more we do this, the easier it gets. A lot of people dub what their feelings about social gatherings as like social anxiety, feeling nervous about hosting or feeling nervous about going places. And it's actually not like a clinical diagnosable social anxiety, which is usually like a very debilitating condition, but it's just like, we're a little bit nervous, and that's actually normal. It's normal to be nervous in social settings. It's normal to be nervous when you're trying something new. That doesn't mean it's wrong or bad or that we shouldn't do it. And so I think also part of it is just like, once we get in the habit of doing these things, it becomes less stressful. My first impression is that, Christina, you have set a very, very high bar for yourself to meet, especially for a first time out of the gate of getting something off the ground. So what I want to know first is, what are some of the local in-person communities that you consider yourself a part of?
Okay. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but I'm very involved in the school and that local community. And I also volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House in my city. So I'm involved with that group. And that might be probably the two big ones.
That is really, really great. Because I think sometimes, as you say, like, you want to gather women. I think a big part of figuring out how to draw people together and create ongoing connections is figuring out, like, what is your magnet? Like, what is the thing that brings you together? And maybe just like women might not be enough. Is it like moms at the school? Is it other volunteers that you work with at Ronald McDonald House? Like, is it a hobby? Is it a certain kind of game? Is it another kind of volunteer effort? And I think that that can be a reason people come together, because I think it's hard to just say, like, women for a profound experience. Like, that is a very lofty goal, but also pretty vague. So I'm curious, does this spark anything for you in terms of like magnets or subgroups within the people that you are interested in sort of connecting with more deeply?
Yes, I know quite a few people that are very arts and craftsy, and I'm not, but I was like, what if I just found someone to help figure out what the arts and crafts would be? Or maybe it's just everybody comes with their own arts and crafts, and then we just chat around the table or something.
I love that.
Catherine, can I play little devil's advocate here? Because I'm curious about the culture of Christina's friends. Because my friends, I live in the Bay Area, so we're like the heart of, progressive, new agey culture. But I started a women's group that had no connecting theme other than like, these are all women I think are badass and interesting and like would be up for a leap of faith of like, let's get to I didn't advertise it as a profound gathering for sure. I think I was just like, let's get together and we do themes, like we pick a theme and someone facilitates, etc. And I've noticed over the years that when I would invite certain people, they would feel anxious about there not being an anchor. Like they would be kind of like, what are we actually doing here? And it felt like too group therapy vibe for them. But then other people are really down for that kind of an experience. So I'm curious, Christina, about like your friend group. Do you have like a crew of friends? Do you have a bunch of different friends that don't know each other? Would an invitation like come together and sit around the table and talk about like ambition as an example of a theme? Would they be down for that? Or they would be like, Christina, this is weird. What are you doing?
or also just to throw in, Christina, maybe there's people that you don't have a really strong group and you're looking for that. That's also okay.
Yeah, I would say my friend group's pretty disparate. It would be interesting, I think, to get them together because they do have similar values and things that I think I can see how one friend might touch another friend in a certain way. I was at an event recently and I met this girl and we connected outside and like did something afterwards together. And we had this whole like 2-hour drink together and just chatted and really went deep real quick. It was like a great first friend date. And at the very end of it, she was like, so why did you message me? And I was like, I just like saw you and I was like, she's cool. I like her vibe. Like I want to hang out. And she was like, oh, okay. It was like literally nothing more than that. I just get this vibe sometimes from people where I'm like, you're cool. I want to know you. We're hanging out. And like, I just make that happen. That's the vibe I feel like I'm trying to bring to this gathering, whatever it is. And I guess, I don't know why with her, it was like, I don't care if you want this. I'm excited about it. And I want to get to know you. So we're doing this. But I can't have that we're doing this energy for a group.
Why not?
I don't know.
That's so interesting. Do you think it's the high bar, Catherine?
Yeah, well, so I'm also curious when you said, like, you're worried about your space, you're worried about not having quite enough places for people to sit, or you don't have the right kind of hosting things. And I'm curious if you're the sort of person who can sort of say, like, hey, you seem like a cool person, like, let's hang out. That's actually, a lot of people have a hard time with that. I'm curious as also if the size or the size of the idea of having a lot of people together is a little intimidating. And also, do you have other sort of stresses around what kind of food would I serve? How clean my house is my house? Like, does it feel like a lot of work to have a big group?
I do think the logistics get in my way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the big overarching, I want to do this is good. And I can bring the energy when it's happening. But yes, I'm terrible at details. And so those little details are hampering me.
Got it. And also, in your ideal vision, how many people are at this gathering?
I'd like to be conservative and say like 6 to 8 to start.
Yes, I think that's a great potential number to start. And I know you mentioned wanting to connect with women, but is there a world where you would be interested in families or couples, or it's really like a version where it's just sort of like women specifically?
I think I'd be open to families too. I think that adds the worry of what do I have to entertain the kids?
Right. Okay. So that sort of adds an additional layer. So it sounds like 6 to 8 people, women, or potentially families. I'm curious, do you ever have just like one family over, or just like 1 or 2 people over?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do that a lot. Yeah.
Okay. You feel comfortable. So you've actually cracked a number of like hosting obstacles in my view, because a lot of times even having one family over feels like a lot. So it sounds like you are open to having people over, you do host, and you do invite people to things. Those are all really big barriers. So I just want to give you a big pat on the back for that. You are further along than I thought.
Yay, Christina.
I feel accomplished. Thank you.
Exactly.
Another question I have is I don't know where you live, but how difficult is scheduling with people? Because this can also be a big barrier.
I feel like my social battery is like an iPhone before a new update comes out. I fear that other people are experiencing the same thing, and I don't necessarily want to add to people's plates, like I said earlier, unless it's going to be worth their time. And so there have actually been instances where I have tried to schedule, like larger gatherings and just cancel them at the last minute because I didn't feel like it was going to be what I wanted it to be.
I'm so glad you brought up the social battery thing because I've felt that, and I feel like so many people around me have expressed that. Are you finding, Catherine, in your club that people are expressing that?
So I know from my own experience, like I'm a mega extrovert, but since the pandemic, there's certain things like going to like school events where it's like super loud and there's a bunch of kids screaming. I find it really draining. So I think that you also have to think about like for yourself, what your social battery like is going to recharge. Like, I think sometimes we are a little bit too broad brush. We're like, I'm an extrovert, I'm an introvert, but like sometimes introverts really like hosting, or sometimes introverts really like going to something for an hour instead of 3 hours or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think you've kind of already honed in on like what your ideal is of 6 to 8 people and not biting off more than you can chew. But I feel like, Christina, you've really gotten a little bit in your head, like, we're in a time where people do feel overwhelmed, but they also feel lonely and left out. So all the things are true. So I don't think anyone is like, how dare someone invite me to something? Like I think that's really in your head. But I totally understand, especially if you have some anxiety about it not being what you want or not being like worth someone's time, that I really am going to suggest an activity. And also think about maybe picking a date and then inviting people, like say you're interested in 6 to 8 people. So you invite 10 to 12 and you say, this is the date and we're going to do XYZ craft or whatever. And you don't cancel it or reschedule if like 2 or 3 people can't come. You just like set the date and then see who can come to that. And I like the idea of something craft oriented for you because you are more of a type A person. Like, I think it would be great for you to try something a little out of your comfort zone where you're not the expert. And that could actually be really fun. Like, for example, I really don't think of myself as a games person, but a friend and neighbor offered to teach me Mahjong with some other people. And so I've been playing Mahjong, and I'm just challenging myself and I'm enjoying it. And it's like 3 other women who our kids all go to the same school and we live close by. Like, so I feel like thinking about some parameters and container, even though I love Courtney's vision of like her women's group, I think Courtney is probably a far more skilled than average facilitator. And so I feel like all the pressure of facilitation might be one of the things that's making it a little difficult for you.
Yeah, I hear that.
Is your hope that it would be an ongoing group?
I think I just want to get one down.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's I was curious about if that was part of what was stymieing you, was like this long-term vision. And for that, I was going to recommend just plant the seed that maybe this could be ongoing, which I do think, I find because life is so busy, I actually love having an ongoing ritual with these women because we do the scheduling once and then it's like, we all know on Wednesdays, the 3rd Wednesday of every month, like there's going to be a gathering, and it just takes away most of the stuff that is soul killing to me about trying to host, which is like the calendaring and the remembering and, the getting yourself up for it again. Whereas, ours is like 3rd Wednesday of the month, potluck, it's happening. If you can't come, no hurt feelings. If you can come, great. And I was going to say, I really appreciate your compliment, Catherine, about my facilitating, and I do think it's one of my gifts. But I also find it incredible that, like, if you put a bunch of soulful people around a table with even a little bit of facilitation, I'm like constantly amazed at how beautiful humans are at rising to the occasion and listening to each other. And it depends on the quality of friends that you gather, Christina, but I have to say I'm amazed at how light the lifting is in a lot of these kinds of situations.
I like to think my friends are pretty high quality.
I would bet they are. Having high-quality friends not only will make the gathering wonderful, but you could also tap them to help co-host. And your co-hosts don't have to be the friends you know the best. In fact, the cool woman Christina talked to at the bar might be a great co-host because it could be a situation where they both invite some of their friends and they gather over casual pasta or potluck and just get to know one another. The other benefit of co-hosting, which I have done a lot in my life, it helps with imposter syndrome because even if I secretly feel like I suck, I know you don't. While you ponder who your next dream co-host might be, we're going to take a quick break.
The Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University helps you go from, I know the way, to I've arrived with our top 10 ranked online MBA. Gain skills you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Get ready to go from make it happen to made it happen and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu/Jack Welch MBA to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
So, you're about to make a trade based on a friend's text. But which you do you listen to? Is it, oh, we could buy a house in Tulum? Get optioning those options. We could lose everything. Or, let's do a little research. Get your head in the trade and make the investment decision that's right for you. Learn more at finra.org/trade-smart.
We're back with our listener Christina and Katherine Goldstein, author of the forthcoming book, How to Find Your People. Now, before the break, we talked about lowering our own expectations, narrowing the purpose, and maybe even roping in a co-host. Now let's turn to actually running the event, including avoiding awkward small talk. Ugh, the worst. Katherine says it can be intimidating to facilitate a real conversation.
Something that I've started to do just in these deep casual dinners that I have is I just have one question prompt. I did one when we had 2 other families over and I asked, what would surprise your 20-year-old self about you now? And that led to such interesting conversations. And we 3 of the 6 adults there lost a parent around that time they were 20. It's the sort of thing that probably wouldn't have come up if we just talked about summer plans and school or whatever. So sometimes just 1 or 2 thoughtful questions like that, where everyone takes a turn, can especially I find if it has something to do with people reflecting on the past or past experiences, that can really lead to a lot of interesting and profound connections. So facilitation can feel scary, but facilitation can actually just be asking 1 or 2 questions.
Katherine, this gets really granular, but I've had that moment where I want to introduce a question like that, and I feel like a nerd. I'm yes. Everyone's going to be here's Courtney again.
Yeah.
We just wanted to frickin' eat our pizza and have a beer and chill, and you're being extra again. So I can talk myself out of it. I mean, mostly I just torture everybody anyway. But Katherine, do you have any tips of what to say when you introduce a question like that?
If the conversation is flowing and everyone's connecting and it's going great, you don't have to force it for sure. But in those kind of lull moments, it is really good to have a few of those. And I find that usually if you're having a couple of hours together, usually those moments do come up and you don't have to be all right, everyone, in 5 minutes, we will convene the discussion points. But the way that you can bring them up is even just hey, because everybody's getting to know each other. I just had this question that I thought would be interesting, or I was talking about this. I was listening to a podcast or I was on a podcast, or for me, it's easy because I can say, hey, I'm trying this out for my book. So I have a great excuse. But I think other people, you can just say, hey, something I was thinking about. In my experience, people will, again, as Courtney says, rise to the occasion.
Katherine, do you have tips for finding good prompts and good questions?
So one, which is usually a really funny one, is what is the worst job you've ever had? That like always gets people talking. And I actually did that like with my parents and my mother-in-law, like a family gathering. And I heard a bunch of stories like I had never heard before. So that like you can do with people you know pretty well. I would say another one that I haven't tried out that I'm curious about. What was a moment that you didn't realize you were making a choice that would impact the course of your life? So that's like a little bit of a deeper one. Another one can be if you're like with couples, like how did you meet your spouse? That's like a little bit lighter. Another one, depending on the season, is like, what did you do as a kid during the summers? You can learn like a lot about people's background and family situations, or like what were holidays like when you were growing up, those sorts of things. Like what's the best trip you've ever taken? Things that get people talking about their past can often be really revealing, or like what religion were you raised in? Those are all things that I think get beyond small talk. And if people want to go deep, they definitely can.
I love that. My 11-year-old just said at the table, if you could travel anywhere with anyone by any means, what would it be? And that one was cool because she said dead or alive. So you got to learn about people that folks had loved that had passed on. I also wanted to recommend another thing I've done is written out questions and put them under people's plates, which was kind of a fun, like different question so that people were answering different things.
Yeah, I think it's a balance because you could turn people off if people are just getting to know each other and you're like, what was the worst moment of your life? You know what I mean? Like you want to warm up, and depending on what the group is, you know, you want to allow for different levels of vulnerability, but allowing for some levels of vulnerability and also being willing to share yourself. A little bit of vulnerability can really set the tone if you're a host or a co-host. But I find that the questions I listed seem to find a good mix. And if people want to go deeper, you definitely like get the opportunity a little bit.
Another way to be a good host and facilitator, think about what's worked for you when you've been invited to gather at someone else's place.
I'm thinking of a couple gatherings that I have attended recently. So one of them is our neighborhood wine night. It's every like third Thursday. We all go to her house and like chat for 2 or 3 hours and then go home. And then the other one I went to recently was a summer solstice event with one of my mentors and friends. And she had a ton of women at her house. She had a playlist. She went through like a little bit of an introduction. And then we went outside around a fire pit and just burned a bunch of things that we wanted to get rid of and howled into the the night in her suburban house.
I love that. Did people actually howl?
Oh, yeah, we did. And she was like, my neighbors think I'm crazy because she does this twice a year. And every, summer and winter, they're just howling in her backyard. But I was thinking, as you guys were talking, of what's similar between the two of them, even though one was a one-off and one was, monthly. And it's always just a bunch of people that are all tied to like the neighborhood or summer solstice, like they're interested. So like that theme that we were discussing. And then, both of them are potlucks. So it's like, they have the wine and you bring whatever. And I think it sets the tone for like more of a communal gathering rather than just like I am the host and I'm controlling every aspect of this. And then I took away from the summer solstice event, my mentor was she was very her. She's cursing and making jokes and doing all of these things. And, people know her at varying levels, that were in attendance that night. And it felt like it gave me permission to just be me at the event. When I'm envisioning this gathering, it's always me in this sort of like
elevated.
Yes. And I don't want that. And I'm trying to like shake that from my visualization of what this would be, because I think that's putting a lot of pressure on it too, that I can't just be me.
To sort of create an ease among your group, it can be really useful for them to also have something in common that are not just you. That often I think can help sort of create more coherence. And even though I really like that you have the goal of just one gathering, if you decide to continue, there is then a magnet beyond just people who know Christina. I think that then creates a lot of pressure on you to keep conversation going, to be the convener, to like make sure everyone, gets introduced. And like, so I feel like that there's having some commonality can be really helpful. in sort of creating a situation that feels natural and sort of self-propelling.
One other kind of like, let's call it a social glue or something that I'm thinking about is called a third thing. Now, this gets a little wonky, so Christina, stick with me. Basically, it's a thing outside of the people gathered that they can focus on or get to know one another through. So like you're making a collage while talking about, your dreams for the year ahead, or you're reading a poem together and then trying to figure out what the hell it means, right? It makes the whole thing a little less direct, which I think can feel a little less intimidating.
Yes.
And then even if people don't already know each other, they're going to have something that helps them enter the room and be like, oh, I know what we're talking about. I can offer these thoughts about it that I've composed.
Mm-hmm. And also an article or podcast, especially an article, a lot of times people don't join book club because they're like, I don't have time to read the book. So, an article, you can also make it like a lower stakes thing like that.
Yeah, I will say for my women's group, Christina, we pick a theme and then I often send like a few things, like a podcast episode or an article or whatever. And I think basically 99% of the time, no one reads anything or listens to anything. But it's just like a practice of sort of being like, there is material out in the world on this if anyone wants to check it out. And I think most of the time, nobody does. And I totally don't take it personally, which I will say is another thing, Catherine, that I feel like is part of the vibe of a lot of what you're putting out in the world right now is just depersonalizing. That like it's a paradox, right? On the one hand, it's very personal because you're inviting people into your home and you're like putting this energy towards it. But I think the depersonalizing of like not taking a no personally, not taking it personally if it's not someone's cup of tea, the way that you host or the vibe that you're giving off. I just feel like that's sort of necessary to push through the vulnerability of doing this. Don't you think, Catherine?
Totally. People can come, people cannot come. If you do decide to do things on a longer term basis, standing dates are really great because if you get into like, I can't come Wednesday, can we do Thursday? Like, it's just going to be a scheduling nightmare, logistical thing. So,
yeah. I feel like murder doodle polls. Like when someone says doodle poll, I'm just like, and now I die.
Nope.
Please no doodle polls. Let's do a little rapid round before we wrap up. Catherine, how to send the invite? Like text, email, evites, like what do you recommend?
So in the keeping of deep casual, I really like a personalized text message, especially if you're going to invite a relatively small number of people. So saying like, hey, so-and-so, I'm having this on this date. I'd really like to include you because I loved talking to you at the school event. And I think that this would be a great group of women. It's 6 p.m. on Saturday, the 21st. Let me know if you can make it. Like,
cute. So are those individual texts, not a group text? Okay.
Individual texts. Because also group texts, another thing that I hate is what I call the cancel cascade of like the first person to respond is like, oh, I can't come. And then it just like, or like people put on the group text like, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it. Sorry. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, is anyone coming? And then it starts this like cascade of people, like lack of momentum. Once you have an established group, maybe a group text would make sense. But for this, make it clear that it's for that person and that like, it matters to you whether or not they are coming. And it matters to you whether or not they tell you if they're coming.
And then you have some great specific thoughts on this on your fantastic Substack people should check out. But will you talk a little bit more about food? Like potluck we talked about is wonderful. Other ways to not feel too stressed about food?
One main course and then asking people to bring things is great. I also just think we really need to lower the bar on our food things. Like think about like what would you make for your family in general? And then how do you like make a larger amount of that?
Also, if you do the ongoing thing, Christina, one of the beautiful things I've noticed we do potluck is that we all get to know each other over the course of the years we've gathered. And we all know, like, Abby's going to bring a Trader Joe's cheese, carrots, and hummus. Like, Sandy's going to bring a beautiful bottle of wine. And, like, it's just like we all know each other's strengths and each other's challenges. And we all, like, don't expect everyone to have some elaborate dish.
And if it feels like meals are too much, Christina, for you or anyone listening, like, make it wine and cheese, make it crackers and dip. Like you can lower the bar as much as you want. We do not live in an Instagram charcuterie board palace. Like let's just
Speak for yourself, Catherine.
I do not.
I was going to say, what I bring to Neighborhood Wine Night is like whatever latest book I just finished and like feminist bookmarks or like something related to that. So
great. Exactly.
This is why we love you, Christina. And why this gathering is going to be amazing no matter what. Okay. One last question. Extroverts versus introverts. I'm thinking about kind of like when, Christina's an extrovert, but we probably have listeners who are more introverted and they feel like they need to like pump themselves up. Like, should they listen to like a walk-on song? Like, what should they do to feel social?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I think we paint too broad of a brush. All humans need social interaction, no matter if you're an introvert or not. Like, some introverts really like hosting. Some introverts don't like hosting. Some introverts like having a job at an event. Other introverts like to not have a job so they can like come and go as they please. So like identify for yourself where your sweet spot is, and then don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'd love to like be the check-in person at the event, or like, jump in and help with the dishes if you don't like to like be the sort of the center of all conversation. So just helping yourself identify where you thrive socially, I think is better than like any kind of pump up music or whatever, in my opinion.
I love that. So Christina, was this helpful to you? Do you have any last questions for us?
No, this was really helpful. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the one and I'm going to report back.
Yay.
Please do. We really want to hear how it goes.
I feel like people need this, and I feel like I need to know going in that people need this and that it will be received well no matter what. And there will be learnings.
Yeah. And if they don't need it, fine. Like that's the depersonalizing thing is like, they can say no, or they can come and be like, that's not for me next time. And like, it has nothing to do with you. You did a beautiful job.
For sure. I totally agree.
Before we go, what are your best questions for starting a great conversation? I know you got them. It can be silly, it could be serious. I would love to gather the best ones from you and share them in an upcoming episode. That way, we can all have some great prompts in our back pockets. Leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001 or email us at howto@slate.com. And the party doesn't stop here for Slate Plus subscribers, because I asked Catherine for her best tips for getting to know your neighbors. Oh, and you won't want to miss her explain the Talking to Strangers game. If you aren't already a Slate Plus member, you can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of the How To show page, or visit slate.com/howtoplus to get access wherever you listen. The episode is available for you to listen to right now. We'll see you there. Do you have an event you'd love to see come to life? Maybe it's an intergenerational dance party, a divorce ritual, a baby shower that doesn't suck? Send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001, and we might have you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, please give us a rating and a review and tell a friend. That helps us help more people. Or better yet, send this episode to your dream co-host and make a plan. How To is produced by Rosie Belson with Kevin Bendis and Sophie Summergrad. Joel Meyer is our supervising producer. Merritt Jacob is senior technical director and composed our theme music. Charles Duhigg created the show. Carvel Wallace is my co-host. And I'm Courtney Martin. Thanks for listening.